Today's project is part 2 of this plug mill. Last time when we took apart the gearbox, we figured out that one of the bearings exploded. I went ahead and got all new bearings and seals, so I think we're ready to put this thing back together. Should be pretty quick, so let's get into it. Before I can order some new parts for this, I'm going to need to pull the bearings off. I'm going to start with the one where the cage and needles are all gone. I'm going to use this bearing puller here. It'll sit right under this lip right here. I'll bolt it down tight and then we'll try to drive it off this shaft. Okay, I have it all set up here. You can see bearing puller's on. I have it set up here in the middle. I'm gonna go ahead and put some washers under it just so I try not to mess this up at all. Alright, I had to let my compressor catch up and I used a smaller washer. You can see that it's coming pretty good. Yeah, I'll continue on. If you don't go in reverse. There we have it. Moving on to this side, we want to do the same thing here. If I just pulled on this cage, it would just immediately shatter. So I'm just going to use some snips, cut this cage so it'll look just like the other one. And it kind of takes a while. I kind of just pick at it. There we go. I got a little piece right there already, actually. The back side's the easier side. And you just want to cut the same part of it. So once you cut the cage, all the needles fall out and you're left with basically the same thing here again. So we'll go ahead and set it up on this side and pull it off of there. Now I'm set up on this side, same way as before. We'll see if we can pull this off. It's a lot smaller distance, so it should be pretty easy. Off she goes. Now we can order some more bearings. Now that the bearing's off, it's time to press these new ones on. This is a tapered shaft, so I can start it just like that. Now I'm gonna go ahead and set it up in this press. I'm just gonna use one of these V sides and then butt it up here. You just wanna make sure you're really on the inner race of this. And then we'll line it up perfectly and start pressing it down. Actually just dropped even further. I'm gonna get down here and watch it just to make sure it doesn't go too far. Alright, that's it. It's seated now. Just back it off. Move on to the other side now. Take it off. You just want to make sure it's spinning freely. It's good. It's seated. This bearing, I'm not even going to use a press. I don't really think I'll need to. It's only going down this far. I can just hammer it on. This is also slightly tapered, so the start of it's pretty easy. Just going to give it a few taps with this and then move on to something else. Okay, now I'm going to take this bolt out so it doesn't mar anything up. I'll just use the end. Once it gets past the shaft, I'm going to switch to this big socket that I have, but for now, just hammer it down. Okay, that's as far as it's going to go. You can see I still have just a tiny little bit left here, so I'm going to be very careful. This fits right over this shaft. And you just want to make sure you're lined up on the inner race. Okay, you can see now we have both bearings on here. Moving on to this last bearing, which is a shielded bearing. It's held on by this clip here. I don't even think the bearing's going to be pressed in very hard. We'll go ahead and get this clip off and see. Yeah, let me check this out. I don't know if I'll have to press this off or not. I'm hoping this is a tapered shaft as well, but I'm going to press it off just to be safe. Okay, I need to find something to press this all the way through. I don't think it's going to take much. I'm just going to use a nut. There we go. Bearing's off. Slap a new one on there now. Like I said, this is a tapered shaft, so I can slide it on a little bit here to start it, set it up under my press, and press it down. Should be able to get most of the way with this. I'm going to use my socket again just to drive that last little bit home so we can put the clip back on it. Everything looks good, bearing still moves freely. Last thing to do before we call this good is put this little pin clip back on it. Alright, now we can move on. First thing that I'm going to do before I start building this gearbox is put this first clip in on the inner groove, because it'll slide in through the back here. So just going to grab this. Alright, now it's set in there. Hopefully you guys can see that. Now we can move on. I need to pack this full of grease and it'll be ready to set in. It's all packed full of grease here, so now we can go ahead and slide the main shaft in. Slides right in. Next up is going to be these two shims that go in here, or wafers, I'm not sure what you would want to call them. They go right here to hold this grease down, and then the final clip here, slide that down in. Alright, should look like that. Perfectly in the groove. I'll clean this up and we'll put the cap back on. This cap has a little seal on it, but I kind of messed it up when I was prying it out. So I'm just going to use some gasket maker, a very light coat around the edge, and then put it back in. Be careful with stuff, it's really messy and can get everywhere. I think I'm going to call that good. Moving on, I'm going to put this backing plate with the race on here. It's got two shims on it and it just fits just like this. You want to make sure the seal is, you know, a little bit lubricated and just ease it on. Make sure you're lining up the shims and it should just pull itself down on there. Gonna finish tightening these by hand. I don't think they need to be that tight. Now we can move on to the output shaft side. For this side, I need to replace the race. This is the part where the bearing blew apart. I don't know if you guys will be able to see this, but it's already cracked right here. I'm just gonna turn it over and try to drive it out with a punch so I can put the new one in. Part of it just fell out here. I'm gonna try to chase it around and knock the rest out. Okay, as you can see, that's what's left of the race. I need to clean this all up and we'll slap a new one in there. Cleaned it up best I could. I'm gonna go ahead and drop this new race down in here. Should be fine. Almost falls in, but take this. You can hear it bottoming out. Now I can put the output shaft in. Make sure it's still sliding good. Everything's looking good. Put my shim on. Alright, everything's looking good. Now we can go ahead and put the seals in. Alright, I have the output shaft seal here. It's pretty far down. I'm hoping that I can slide it most of the way. Then I'll just tap it right below the surface. I'm going to put some WD-40 on it just to help it slip. You don't want to mess up the spring or anything. Okay, and I don't really have anything else. I'm just going to do like one tap all the way around until I get it all the way in. And you don't have to go too far. I'm going to do maybe 1/8 of an inch in. Alright, I think I'm going to call that good. Now we'll move on to the input shaft seal. I don't have anything big enough to fit around this shaft, so basically going to be doing the same thing again. A little WD-40 on my finger just to run the inside of this. Slide it on. And this is going right below the, I watched the video back and this came out right below the shiny piece. You can almost just press these in by hand. I just don't want to go too far, so probably going to tap on it with my hammer a little bit. These little light taps just kind of give you that little bit at a time. Like I said, you should not be in any rush doing this. You gotta make sure you have it evenly around. I think I'm calling that good. Next on the list is this mount, how you connect it to the motor. Just sits on here just like this. I don't think it matters, but I went back to the video and saw that this little tab here was pointed towards the top where this oil fill is, so I'm gonna put it in just like it was. Okay, I think this gearbox is ready to be hooked up to the motor and go back in the machine. Oh, there's one more thing that I'm gonna do here. It makes sense to put this on before I put it all back together. This is the gear drive. Goes right on here, and when I watched the video back, it was basically just about flush with this, so that's where I'm gonna start it out. Doesn't really matter as long as you adjust your chain so that it's in line here. I'm gonna start out like this. Hopefully it'll work out. Okay, that should be good now. First thing I'm gonna do is set this gearbox down in here like this and out the side. That seems safe. Go ahead and run a few of these in here. My camera died. Hopefully you guys got all that. I'm just gonna go ahead and finish tightening these up now. They're 14 millimeters, and just gonna snug them all down and then go back through and tighten them up a little more. Okay, that's tight. Now I'll slide the motor back in. Next up, I'm going to mount this thing back to the base here. I have them kind of where they need to go. Just going to try to get everything started here. I'm probably going to have to go back and adjust this once I get everything in there. Just to line the chain up, but I want to get it semi-secured here. Okay, everything's snugged up here. The last piece I need to bolt back onto the body here is this electrical panel. I had it out just to make it easier to get everything in there. It's just these two bolts right here on the sides. Alright, now to wire all this back up, I need to take the 3 wires from the motor, which is the white, the black, and the red, and then I need to take my ground and shove it all back through this loom here, which might be easier said than done. Alright, I have all the wires here. I did this wrong. I need to come in through the bottom, so let me redo that. I won't bore you. Pulled all these wires up through here now. I'll tidy them all up once I get it all wired up, but first thing I need to do is screw this base back on. I'm gonna go ahead and hook up this ground now. Okay, I have that nut secure. Go ahead and pull these through as much as I can and wire this thing up. I just look back at the wiring diagram. First one, the far left, is going to be the ground. Next up we have white going right beside it. Then we have red. Lastly, On the far left we have black. Just want to make sure they're all seated really well. They're not going to come out. Looks good. Now we can clean up the other side. On this side, I'm just going to pull these wires back. They're already pretty tight. Scrunch everything down as best as you can and put the cover back on. That should work. I think we're getting pretty close now. Okay, before I go any further, I'm going to take this plug out and fill the gearbox full of oil. Basically, the filling procedure is just to fill it till it overflows this cap right here. Let me go ahead and take this out. Okay, I have the plug out of the side right here. I have a little funnel here with a curved end on it that I can stick in here. I use the recommended Kluber synth. It's pretty expensive, so I'm going to try not to use more than I have to. I'm just going to pour it very slowly. Hopefully you guys can see that, but it's overflowing out of the hole now, so I'm going to put the plug back in. Next on the list is to put the chain back on. Then I'll line the chain up. Alright, let me loosen it up so I can slide it closer and put the chain on correct. There we go. Perfect. Now that the chain is on, I'm gonna go ahead and line this up. It's looking pretty good, but I'll double check it and tighten everything up. To make sure everything's straight, I just have this straight edge here. I'm gonna go off of this bigger gear here and run it across and move it around until this lines up all the way around. So it looks like it needs to go over a little bit more, and then I'll tighten everything down. It's looking pretty close. I'm going to check it a few more times, but you guys get the idea, and I'll go ahead and tighten it up and move on. Okay, I have it all tightened up. One last thing, you want to make sure that you push the motor far enough away from this to create good tension. You don't need a lot, but yeah, you just want to make sure you have good tension. I got everything buttoned up inside. Now it's just time to put the top on. We're good to go. Last thing that I'm going to do before I send it home is put the auger on this. I'm going to grease up the shaft a little bit because it was greased a little when I took it out. So, do that. Get all dirty. Make sure you still have this O-ring here. And there's a washer. And a nut. This is a 3/4 inch nut. Once you have the chain on the other side, it should be pretty easy. And it wasn't tightened down too much. I'm just going about flush here. Last thing. I think it just goes like that. Alright, that's going to do it for this video. We got the new bearings and races in. I have put all the gearbox back together. We reassembled everything. The only thing left is the nose cone, which is back at the pottery shop. I don't have a 220 line out here for this plug, so I can't run it. Guess we're just gonna have to hope for the best. I'll update in the description if it explodes, but thanks for watching and see you next time.